What's good, sports fans? Are you ready to elevate your live entertainment experience? Well, let me introduce you to SeatGeek, an amazing platform that connects you to your favorite events while saving you money. With SeatGeek, you can easily find tickets for sports games, concerts, and so much more, all in one place. The interface is user-friendly, making it simple to browse and compare prices. And one of the best features is the interactive seating chart. You can see exactly where you'll be sitting and how much you'll be spending, ensuring you get the best value for your money. But here's the best part. Check this out. By using my promo code, ChalkItUpSports, you can enjoy a one-time $20 discount on your first SeatGeek order. That's right, $20 off your first SeatGeek order. Imagine catching that thrilling game or concert without breaking the bank. It's a win-win situation. Plus, you'll be a part of a community of fans who eat, sleep, and breathe live events just as much as you do. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to download the SeatGeek app today. And don't forget to use my promo code ChalkItUpSports for a one-time $20 discount on your first SeatGeek order. Get excited. Now let's get back to the show. Yo, what's good? This is your boy, Tone DeShields II. You guys are locked in on a very special dose of Chalk It Up Sports via the Chalk It Up Network, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game, man. For the next several months, your Philadelphia Eagles will be known as and only be known as winners. That is Super Bowl champions, Super Bowl 59 champions. How sweet it is to be loved by you. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. It means a lot to me, goes a long way. You guys know what your job is. You know what your role is in this thing. Obviously, you guys are here for the big reveal. You guys are here for the big stepper, Philly.500. But again, you know, when I bring guests onto the show, you guys, I always try to make sure I bring guests who are going to bring value, guests that are always going to bring that energy, bring that fire, guests that are always going to just bring you that raw, unfiltered energy. And I love what 500 has built. I love what he's done over the past several years. I think 500 started doing his YouTube thing back in 2016 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So he's really been boots to the ground. He's been one of the OGs in this Eagles content creation game. But again, without further ado, I'm not going to waste your time. I know how long you guys have been waiting. I'm going to bring in my guy, the man, the myth, the legend, the Don Dada, the Don himself, Philly.500. Big Philly, how you feeling, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm feeling good, brother. I'm feeling good. It feels good to feels good to smell that.
Feels good,
smell
right?
that championship essence off you, brother.
Right.
It feels good.
That's right. Just make sure they call you champ, right? All day long. Everybody's got to call me champ, a champ, yo champ. You know what I mean? That's the way it has to be. We are champions of the world. And not only are we champions of the world, but this team looks really good for the next few years. I'll tell you that.
That's the thing, right? They managed to get this Super Bowl in such a fashion that not only sets you up for the now, but you're set up for the future. And, you know, we're going to get into the off-season talk. You know, Howie Roseman has an extensive checklist that we're going to get into. But you and I haven't spoken. We haven't chopped it up since the 2024 offseason, where we were breaking down some of the moves they made then. You know, they signed Zack Baun. They brought back CJ. They signed Devin White, who was here for a month maybe. They they went and brought in. I'm pretty sure I said Saquon Barkley. They brought in the Paris Campbells of the world, the John Rosses of the world. They brought in Devontae Parker. They brought in so many different people, right?
Devontae Parker, that's right.
They drafted Quinyon Mitchell, drafted Cooper DeJean, Jalen Hunt, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Trevor Keegan, right? So many moves were made on this team. They traded for Jahan Dotson. So many moves were made. They brought in Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore to run the defense and the offense respectively. So many moves were made to overhaul this team. They completely gutted their defensive coaching staff.
Yeah.
And said, you know what? All fresh faces. We're washing our hands clean of that. Right? So many moves were made. We watched this entire season unfold. And lo and behold, this Philadelphia Eagles team ended up being Super Bowl champions. Walk me through how you chronicled this season, the emotions you felt week after week after week, and how they ultimately became Super Bowl champions. Because eventually I want to pick your brain about that game. But let's just start with how you were able to chronicle the entire road and just your overall perspective about the decisions were made leading up to the point.
Yeah, well, I think you got to start with the last off season, right? I thought bringing in coaches that had experience was a good thing, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There were two things to me about the offseason that really appealed to me. The first thing is I'll say this. When they brought CJ Gardner-Johnson back, the defense regained its soul. And I mean that because there was an element of that defense that was missing. It just at times didn't seem like it had any fight, any heart. And you always, people would always say, man, if CJ Gardner-Johnson was on this team, you think the 49ers are going to treat James Bradbury the way they did during that game, or, some of the other things. It just wouldn't happen. And I felt like that was like the first thing. I felt like getting him back gave us our soul back. The second thing was the Saquon Barkley move, because for personal reasons, I really liked that move because I had preached for like 2-3 years leading up to that draft, to getting Saquon, that, hey, I'd always have this idea of why not go out and make the strength of your team stronger and then focused heavy on the other side with just draft picks and play them and let the offense carry you. Because we knew the Eagles had a great offensive line. They had a Miles Sanders. He was very good with the Eagles. DeAndre Swift was very good with his Eagles. But, I used to talk about, I want to see what a Pro Bowl type talent, a top-notch talent at running back looks like with this offensive line. And so, this, 2 years ago, I wanted the Eagles to trade for Barkley. The Giants didn't end up trading him. Then I was saying, okay, listen, if Bijan Robinson's there and Jalen Carter and the kid that went to Houston, I keep forgetting his name.
Will Anderson.
Then, if Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are not on the board, then the Eagles need to go for Bijan Robinson. And it was all with the same philosophy, in my opinion, of, let's see what a good running back would do on this team. Let's make our offense stronger. But once the offense is set, then let's get young defensive players and play them. And if you look at what they did, it's exactly what they did this offseason. Look at all the young guys that played. You now have Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell going into their second year. And these guys already have the experience of a Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, the playoffs, a full season of playing, and it only bodes well for the future. So, those two things really made me like, I was very excited to see how the season would turn out. And then, of course, during the season, there were some surprises. I didn't expect Zack Baun to come out there and be what he was, right? I thought it was like a standout special teams type guy. But he was great. And the defense actually was, they developed way faster than I ever thought that they would. I just think you have a team that in my lifetime, of watching the Eagles. I haven't seen a team, offense, defense, special teams this good. So, early on, I would say when Cooper DeJean came in the slot and started shutting them down, I thought, and it was like, yeah, this team could do some damage. And then you see Barkley and the way he's running, and you just start looking at these teams, and it was like, yeah, no, this team has a legitimate chance to win the whole thing. And they went out and they did it. I mean, it was crazy. It really was.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think all of us coming into the season felt like, hey, if this defense can just be average or just above average, if they can go from being one of the worst defenses in football, one of the worst defenses we've seen in Philadelphia Eagles history, if they can go from being one of those teams to at least being a top 14, top 15, maybe top 12 defense, they can just flirt around the upper half of the league, that average spot just above average, they can flirt around there, and then the offense does what they do, this team would be in business because we felt like this offense would be the North Star to this overall team.
Right.
Next thing you know, Vic Fangio over delivers. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, all these guys on defense over deliver. You mentioned Zack Baun over delivering. You said for you, Zack Baun, you just expected him to be a high quality special teamer, right? Maybe he gets to have some defense, maybe. To be transparent with you, you and I were in lockstep in terms of let's get these young guys on the football field, right? Whatever that looked like.
Right.
Get these young guys on the football field, let them get their lumps early, and they will be ready when things get serious. And when it comes to Zack Baun, I was one of the earliest people on the Zack Baun hype train. The moment we signed him, I did my due diligence and I did some research on him in terms of not reading what Eagles writers had to say, but reading what the New Orleans Saints writers had to say. And looking up his stat column and just seeing what he did in the 2023 season, he got an opportunity to start those final 4 or 5 games for the Saints because they had injuries on the back end in the linebacker core. And what he was able to do was he was quite literally a stat sheet stuffer: sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, pass deflections, tackles for loss. He was everywhere. He was such an athlete. He was such an athlete running sideline to sideline. They use him in so many different ways. And I'm reading what the Saints writers are saying. They're saying that while the Saints are kind of giving up on this guy a little too soon, he can be a player. And lo and behold, he managed to multiply exponentially what he did in that short 4 game span for the Saints. He managed to exponentially grow that into all-pro season with the Philadelphia Eagles, a defensive player of the year finalist. And I'm honestly under the estimation that the only reason he didn't win defensive player of the year is because he wasn't a known commodity.
That's it. I agree because I think he literally was the defensive player of the year. I think he won it and he should have gotten it. But you're right, he wasn't going to do it or get it because of the name recognition. I think you're right. 100% agree.
Yeah. So let's think about we spoke about the young guys and the development side of it, right? Give me your thoughts on Vic Fangio. Right, because we all had our fair share of expectations. A lot of us felt differently about different things. But, when the Eagles brought in Vic Fangio, what was your expectation and what was your reaction to the overall product that he did display with these guys?
Well, I'll say this. Even still right now, like if I was to have to pick the style of defense I want to play, it would still be a little different than what he does. I would like a more man type defense, a more 4-3, but I would like to rely heavy on the blitz. That's not his style. And for whatever reason, we were set on running his style. So my thought was, hey, if we get Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, I have no problem with it. We know he's a good defensive coordinator. We know he gets these guys to play. And if somebody's going to run a system or a style of defense, then it might as well be the guy that everybody's trying to emulate. So I was okay on that level with it. I didn't know. I didn't know he was so good at taking individual talent of players and really using them to their strengths. I think that's something that both the defensive coordinators we've had, Desai and Gannon, I don't think they did a great job of that. And I think Fangio does a lot better job with that. But also, one thing to remember with Fangio is when he came to Philly, you remember all the Miami Dolphin defensive players, how they were thankful to get rid of him. They didn't want anything to do with him. They complained that, he was too old-fashioned, too old school. And, they didn't like him and the way he coached them up. Our guys were hungry. Our guys, they wanted to win, and they were willing to listen. And, I mean, you look at the development. There's so many guys we're talking about develop. I mean, how many teams have you seen that have in 1 year, in the same year, like so many different guys develop? Look at the two rookies, right? DeJean and Quinyon. Nobody thought Jalen Hunt would touch the field. Nobody really thought. We thought he was a project that would take a few years. Look at Nolan Smith, what he became, especially in the playoffs. Look at the development of Jalen Carter. I'll tell you what, my man Jordan Davis broke out in that NFC Championship game, and I believe he's a new man now. So, I mean, you're literally in Nakobe Dean. People were thinking Nakobe Dean was trash. He wasn't going to be anything, right? And look what he's done. I mean, they developed these young guys to a point that I just don't remember another defensive coordinator or team developing so many players at one time in 1 year.
Yeah, and you also got to, put a feather in the cap to guys like Clint Hurt, who really dug deep with that defensive line. I mean, let's be honest, 2023 conditioning was a problem. It was a problem. Josh Sweat was playing a career high in snaps. He couldn't handle it. Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis coming from the Georgia program, those guys are used to rotating a lot. So they still were getting used to the overall nature of the NFL level in terms of snap count. I mean, Jordan Davis, after hawking down Josh Allen in that Buffalo Bills, miracle win, he wasn't the same player after that, right? Jalen Carter.
That was it. That was it. He had nothing left the rest of the year.
And it was rare. Vacation. And it's rare you see moments in sports where it's like a defining moment where someone just completely just fell off that cliff. It's rare. It's hard to be able to pinpoint it. People could always debate, and no, it was this moment. It was that moment. No, everyone says after he chased Josh Allen down, Jordan Davis was not the same guy.
No, he wasn't. He was laying down, and then you see him. He goes like his head like 3/4 up, looks around, and it just goes right back down. I said, he's done. But it was still one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, though. Yeah, watching that guy that big run like that.
Because if he doesn't chase him, he gets that first down.
I know.
So yeah. And then you mentioned Nolan Smith, a guy that people was a little questionable about, being a first round pick, borderline second round pick, being picked, I think 31st overall, something like that. I mean, a lot of people had their concerns about Nakobe. There were so many concerns about guys. But then Vic Fangio comes in and steadies the ship. He brings in Clint Hurt. He brings in Clint Hurt for the D-line, Bobby King for the inside linebackers. I mean, brings in Christian Parker for the DBs, right? Developing Quinyon and Coop. You think about teams who have drafted. These top-notch DBs in the first round. The Jets drafting Sauce Gardner. I want to say the Jaguars drafting Jalen Ramsey. We see what he's done with the Rams and the Miami Dolphins, right? He's a Super Bowl champion. But we've seen what the Broncos have been able to do with Patrick Surtain, right? These guys typically find that one gem, right? But how often can a team say they found two starting DBs, two high quality, two Pro Bowl talent, potential all pro level defensive backs in the first and second round, respectively? That's unheard of.
Right. And not only that, did they play? They play as rookies. They play the whole year as rookies, and then they win the Super Bowl on top of that. I mean, it's craziness if you look how these guys are set up going forward. It really is. And here's the most underrated thing about right now and going into the offseason. We didn't lose any of these defensive coaches. We got Clint Hurt coming back for another.
I was nervous about losing Christian Parker. I was nervous about losing him.
I was worried about Parker and Hurt because to me, I feel like I feel like that he's developing these defensive linemen, just in a way that I don't think happened a year ago, even 2 years ago. I mean, we relied on veterans so much. Now we're dealing with guys who are young and they're developing. Same with the defensive back coach. And you know what? I don't expect those guys to be here long term. But if we get 2 years of great development from those guys for our young guys, I think that's a great thing.
For sure. For sure. So give me your moment, your turning point moment from this season when you said to yourself, oh no, this team can win it all and they can do it dominantly. What was that game? Was it a specific opponent, a specific moment during a game? What was that? What was that moment when you said to yourself, oh no, we're for real?
It was a Cincinnati game. It was a Cincinnati game because I still didn't know what Cincinnati was, right? You still think that they're capable and they can be, pretty good. I know Cincinnati slow starts every year, it seems. So I felt like that they were, even at that point, we played them. I thought, yeah, this is a team that's going to wind up digging themselves out of the hole and they'll be in the playoffs. But I thought the way the secondary played in that game, and then when I saw Cooper DeJean make that tackle on fourth down on Jamar Chase, I said to myself, this is a good defense. This is a really young, good defense, and they come to play. And you combine that with your offensive line and your running game, I think you have something there. Everybody, and Dan Silly, like I go on a show, and I'm arguing with him all year. He'd always say his question every week: do you think the Eagles are built to win a Super Bowl? And I said, since when in NFL history did not having a good defense or run game and not turning over the ball not be a formula for winning? It's always been a formula for winning, and that's what they were doing. So I think that Cincinnati game was the first time I felt like, not offensively, but I felt like that defense was good enough to win. And I already had felt that the offense was. So I would say the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. For me, it was definitely the Cincinnati game. Because there are moments in football games where your defense has to do something. I guess the word is special. And you mentioned the perfect play, that Cooper DeJean stop at 4th and 1 on Jamar Chase. That was a special play down because of the down, the distance, the quarterback, the receiver. It was open field. I mean, that was that's a defining play for guys in their careers. That was a defining play for that defense, right? It spoke about how disciplined they were, how well coached they were, how prepared they were. You mentioned how, at the very least for the defense, that was the moment where you felt like, okay, we got a Super Bowl caliber defense. The offense faced its fair share of criticism throughout the season, not really about the running game, but more so about the passing game.
Yeah.
What was that defining moment for you where you said to yourself, okay, this offense can get it done on the big stage?
New Orleans game. It was a New Orleans game. Well, Barkley had, to me, see, I just never doubted that they could pass the ball. That to me was never an issue. Like, I never bought in it. Yeah, I never bought into it. I thought it was ridiculous. Like, okay, I thought when we saw Barkley, make that big run versus the Saints, and we end up winning that game. I mean, to me, that was the perfect example of what I'm talking about, because you have a running back, he breaks that, right? But then when Jalen has to move the ball down the field, what does he do? He moves the ball down the field. With
Not many people will pick that game, 500. Not many people will pick that game.
I know, but to me, the passing game, I wasn't ever worried about. I felt like if we need to do it, when we need to do it, we can do it. But when I saw the running game, and I saw Barkley break it, and seeing what we've already had seen from him during the year, I was like, did this offensive line and this running back are good? And when you can run the ball the way they can run the ball with Barkley, I'm sorry, it's just not that big. You're not going to have a problem passing the ball. And remember, I don't think Devontae Smith got hurt that game. I don't know if A.J. Brown even played that game.
He didn't.
But when the Eagles needed to go down the field and move the ball, Jaylen Hurts hits Dallas Goedert across the middle for a big play. And so to me, I think it was more that I knew how nasty that running game with that offensive line was going to be. And I didn't have doubts about the passing game the way other people did.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say the Saints game, because that was one of their more herky-jerky offensive performances, right? A lot of the offense really got generated in that fourth quarter.
Right. But that's the thing, right? That's the thing. Your offensive line wore him out. Saquon Barkley, just you could see like how he looked at, he was going to have a monster year. And then fourth quarter, Jaylen Hurts. Fourth quarter, when the game's on the line, he'll find a way to get the passing game done. He'll make the play. And he did. And that's what, that's when I thought, yeah, we're good offensively. Defensively, I had a lot of questions still. Offensively, I was good.
I like that. So, okay. We've covered 2024 off season. We've covered the turning points for you during the regular season, defensively and offensively, right? But then we get to a point in the regular season where, despite your comfort with the defense, despite your comfort with, or the confidence level in the offense, there was still a turning point for this team in general, where people completely wrote off their passing game. And it felt like this team would be held back by the quarterback, and that was the infamous Carolina Panthers matchup.
Right.
And then AJ Brown comes out and says, the passing. They ask him what's wrong. He says passing. So and then BG follows that up with a very, very damning interview on WIP. Thankfully, they managed to overcome that. But when that situation was unfolding, walk me through how you were processing the information that you were getting from that Panthers game, from AJ Brown, from BG.
Well, to me, I thought, it was a bad game. Bad games are going to happen. They didn't throw the ball well. I didn't think it was the end all be all as many people did. However, when AJ Brown said what he did, and then Brandon Graham goes on the radio and says what he did, that to me was a defining moment for the coach. Because what I saw was, to me, are we getting ready to unravel again? Did we learn anything from a year ago? Because I think it was very similar things like that last year when we were 10-1 that unraveled this team. And would that affect it? Were we going to go back into this unraveling where, the guys aren't happy, they're not getting along? Now we're hearing, locker room stuff. Is this team about to collapse? Did this coach not learn anything? Can this coach weather the storm? Did he learn anything from a year ago? And can he right the ship? That's what, to me, that whole thing was about. It was about the head coach right there.
Wow. So do you feel like it was necessary for AJ Brown to say what he said? Do you feel like it was necessary for BG to say what he said? Again, you said like this was an important moment for this was an important moment for Nick Sirianni to put his foot down and say, we're not going to have a repeat of last season. We're not going to beat ourselves here. Do you feel like both AJ Brown and BG's, I don't want to say outbursts, but their statements were necessary?
I think Brandon Graham didn't. I think it just slipped out, man. I don't think he meant anything by it, like in terms of, he wasn't trying to be divisive or anything like that. I think it just came out in conversation. I think AJ Brown said what he had to say. People trash AJ Brown like, oh, he wants the ball.
I don't get
it. He's a prima donna. He, this, that, the other, and then they show him talking to Jalen Hurts on the sideline. Oh, look, they're arguing. He wants the ball. Last year, if you remember, during the whole during the collapse, because 2 years ago when all this stuff kind of happened, the collapse started, and they didn't have an answer for it. Right. And then AJ Brown was like, listen, I'm not talking to the media. He wouldn't talk. Remember, he goes, I'm not saying anything because, what can I say? And to me, I look at it like he was just being an honest leader, and he was putting it out there. And it was a problem. That passing game was a problem in that game. And I thought it was, to me, I had no problem with what he did. And I think Brandon Graham, his whole situation was, he probably shouldn't have said that. I don't think he meant it. And to me, it was just, all right, what do you got, Nick Sirianni? What kind of head coach are you? Did you learn anything from this? Or are we going to unravel yet again?
Yeah. I would have to agree with you. AJ Brown definitely gets this weird criticism from people. And when I see people try to justify it, it just sounds like you want him to be something he's not. You want him to do things your way, instead of just appreciating the player for who he is and understanding that what that player, who he is what makes him the player he is on the field. Right? I don't want to take that dog out of AJ Brown. I don't want to take that passion out of AJ Brown. It's what drives him. It's what moves him, right? It's how that young man made it from growing up in a trailer park, to being a $32 million wide receiver in football. And I feel like people have a wrong sense or a wrong idea of what an actual prima donna is or what a diva is. When you really think about how AJ Brown moves professionally, he's really not a diva. He doesn't make things always about him. You don't see him at every event, every party, promoting something, trying to sell you something. He's a very low key. He's typically really low key dude. He's about his family. He's about his faith. He's about his children. It's a very weird thing that it's a very weird cloud that follows AJ Brown throughout the city of Philadelphia.
Well,
I have a hard time understanding it.
I think it's stereotype because he's a wide receiver. I think people are also I think people have, they remember what happened with T.O., who, I mean, look, you could say, well,
did it really scar people that bad, 500? Did it really scar people that bad?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy was doing push-ups in his driveway. I mean, dude, it was like nothing you've ever seen before. And what was so horrible about the whole thing was you knew how good he was, and you knew if they could just focus on football, they would be good. I also think, people like jump to conclusions. Sometimes we got to listen to what a guy's saying, because truth of the matter is he was saying things that were right. Nobody ever asked, is he right? They said, oh, he's a prima donna. He's this, he's that. He's selfish. People wanted to trade him. Remember, people wanted to trade the guy. Are you trade him? Are you crazy? So to me, I think that AJ gets a bad rap, and I absolutely love the guy.
Yeah, same here. All right, now let's transition to that Steelers game real quick, because that's the week after. Jaylen Hurts gets his fair share of criticism all throughout the season about passing.
Right.
He does what he does to the Steelers. He comes out in the press conference and says, hey, is that what y'all wanted to see? And then the Washington game comes. And the Eagles get up on Washington big early. And he goes down with a concussion. And the Eagles, they try to hold on. GJ gets ejected. And ultimately, they lose that game in dramatic fashion to the rookie.
Yeah.
Another turning point for this team, in my opinion. You're without Jaylen Hurts for the remainder of the season into the first game of the playoffs, right? When you think about that loss to Washington and how it kind of offsetted the trajectory that Jaylen Hurts was going to be on in terms of the passing game, and then GJ gets ejected, right? When you think about that in and of itself, Steelers week and Washington week, what's your thoughts on the impact it had on GJ's leadership going forward? Jaylen Hurts, the pressure going on him going into the playoffs, the overall identity for the passing game.
That you mean that Washington game specifically?
Yeah,
Washington. Or that just that stretch.
Yes, yeah. So let's talk that stretch, right? Because I feel like that stretch was really defining for the team as well.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Like the Steeler game to me was like the I told you so moment, because it was like, see, if Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball. He can do it. There you go. We've seen it. Now can we basically stop talking about it and let's focus on that was my thought process. Now the Washington game, I said this. What I said after that game is that if they played that game 100 times, 99 times the Eagles win that game. I truly believe that game just was the luckiest game for Washington. They had so many weird things go their way in that game. And I mean, look, they won. But if there was a 4th and 12 play, late ended, last play of the third quarter going fourth, Jaden Daniels goes for 30 yards. If they tackle him, the game's over. That game would have been over. But it gave him life. I just think that was a fluky game. However, I do think that the Washington Commanders would have had a better chance in the NFC Championship game if they would have lost that game. Because I think that game, if the Eagles beat Washington there with
I see where you're going. I see where you're going with this.
They think, well, we got this team. We swept them without our starting quarterback. Do they take them a little bit lightly? But because of how things transpired, Washington talking about how they're just as good and all the stuff, I think it gave the Eagles a little bit, little edge in that championship game.
Like a hard reset mentally. Like a hard reset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like that because I agree with you. I feel like you win both of those games in the regular season. You can't, by nature, you can't help but to take that team lightly. You can't help it.
Right.
But what I was hearing surrounding that game, leading up to that matchup in the playoffs, was the fact that they never forgot that game. The Eagles, that is, that was one game on the schedule that they felt like, oh, we really handed that to them. And now the Commanders are walking around here, popping crazy as if they really pulled something off here, right? Let's just get to the playoff run, right? Let's do that. The playoff run: Green Bay wild card round, Rams divisional round, Washington NFC Championship. Let's stay there for a second before we touch Super Bowl. Walk me through how you chronicled those 3 games, your perspective on those 3 games, what you were feeling, because you're on a week-to-week basis, right? Walk me through all the emotions that you were trying to illustrate throughout that time.
Well, the Green Bay game, the Green Bay game, I felt like, I felt pretty good. I felt like we would win that game. Jalen Hurts coming back from injury will be a little sluggish, that kind of thing. But the one thing we saw right away in that game, and I thought was great, was that Saquon Barkley was not just having a good year. He wasn't just a good regular season player, but this guy has a clutch gene in him. In a big game, in a big moment, he's gonna break off a big run or a big play. And so I thought that was a real interesting way to see Barkley, because we hadn't seen him in that situation with really any playoff games before. I also think that, and the way I look at the playoffs is, I look at it as guys like Nolan Smith's 3rd season, because if you look Nolan Smith's 2nd season, right, he had 6.5 sacks. He had 4 sacks in 4 games in the playoffs. I feel like a lot of these guys, playing all those young guys, I thought that's where it really started to show us. These guys weren't rookies anymore. They were experienced. They kind of seen things. They kind of felt things. And I thought that the defense started to play really, really good. And then if you look at that the Rams game with the snow, that was historic.
That's a historic game. That's a game you talk about to your kids 20, 30 years from now, 500.
It was, and to watch Barkley and what he did in that game. I just think that was that was clutch moment, man. Those were clutch moment, and not only that, but on the defensive side of the ball, look at the development of Nolan Smith. Breaks out. Jalix Hunt starts to play. He breaks out. What about Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter does not sack Stafford there. We lose the game. All your young defensive players that played so much, finally, I thought we're not rookies anymore. They were all breaking out or, starting to play at a high level. Quinyon Mitchell gets this interception against Green Bay. I mean, so, it just seemed like
Washington.
they were coming
Actually,
together at the right
Quinyon,
time.
you're right. Quinyon got 2 interceptions in the playoffs, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Green
He
Bay and
did.
Washington,
Green
right?
Bay,
Oh, yeah.
right. That's right. And Baun had I think Baun had 4 turnovers in the playoffs as well. They were playing good, and I'm going to tell you this: a guy's name that might not have put a ton of stats up, but I thought, like I said, the soul of the defense. People don't talk enough about what CJ Gardner-Johnson means to this team, what he did during the season, and what he did during the playoffs. He's steady, man. He is one of the keys, and having him out there, he's just steady, man. I really see him as the soul on that defense, and to me, it's not a mistake or luck that they have them. They go to the Super Bowl. They lose them. They collapse. They get them back. They go back and win the Super Bowl. I thought he was great. I thought he was great down the stretch and into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and a lot of those young guys lean on him. I mean, the way Reed Blankenship talks about him, right? Reed loves him. The way just that whole defense is recognized. Again, like going back to that Washington game when he got ejected, I think he had a moment where he said to himself, I can't let that happen again. I'm too valuable to this team. And, the young guys look up to him, right? You mentioned how these guys weren't rookies anymore. At the level they were playing at, those rookies don't play like that on that big stage. I mean, you get to the Commanders game in the NFC Championship, and that defense forced 4 turnovers off 3 fumbles and an interception. I mean, and they weren't like fluky fumbles like a bad snap or you just were lucky to get it out of his hand, right? No, they laid the wood. They forced those fumbles, 1 on special teams, 2 on the defensive side. The Quinyon Mitchell interception in the end zone to end the game. This defense, these young guys, the way they showed up again, we thought this offense would be the story of the year, but it ended up being this defense.
The defense. I mean, you look at it. Look how many guys in the playoffs defensively really broke out. You have Cooper in the Super Bowl, Quinyon during the playoffs with turnovers. You have, I mean, we can't forget Jaylen Hunt. Jaylen Hunt look how good he was in the Super Bowl.
Came up big when BG got hurt. Came in big when BG got hurt.
Huge. And I'm gonna tell you, Jordan Davis. People love to crap on Jordan Davis, but go watch the NFC Championship game when he sacks Jaden Daniels. There's a picture of him on the sideline. I think he's headbutting guys without a helmet, but there's a look on his face. There's a look on his face. I'm telling you, I felt it. It was like, man, I just felt like he was saying I needed that. I got this. You know what I mean? That was a big moment for him in his career. And you look at the way he played after that sack versus Washington. He was lights out. And then he goes right into the Super Bowl and plays the same way. I think he turned a corner also. I really do. I think he turned a corner.
Yeah, my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments from the playoffs, is doubling back to that Rams matchup before we get to the Super Bowl game. One of my favorite moments from this playoff run was Jalen Carter got his first sack in that Rams game. It was before the snow started falling. Jalen Carter sacked Matthew Stafford. It was when he picked him up, and he could have spiked him on his fucking head, but he did it. But he picked him up, and him and Nolan go back to the sideline. And I guess in order for that play to happen, Carter had communicated to Nolan, said, "Hey, I'm going to make a move here. You do you, and watch me do me." Right. And they get back to the sideline, and Jalen Carter is like, Nolan, thank you for trusting me right there. Thank you for trusting me on that play. Nolan Carter walked up to him. He said, "Boy, don't you ever say those shit like that to me ever again. You see that shit, you call it. Let's ball."
Right.
I'm like, no, these guys are different.
No.
These guys are playing at a different speed, the emotion, the energy, the zeal, like the fire. I'm like, oh no. They smell it. Not only do they smell blood, they smell that Lombardi.
They do. They did. I agree. It was quite the run, that's for sure.
Definitely. So let's get to the big one, the Super Bowl matchup, the rematch, right? Everyone was screaming, listen, we got to get our lick back. We owed them one. We let them off the hook.
Yeah.
Right? Only reason we lost that game is because defense didn't do their job, which I agree with.
Yep.
But we get into that game. Before opening kickoff, going into that game, walk me through what you were feeling. What was your confidence level?
Oh, it was high. It was high. I in my preview prediction video, I had the Eagles winning by double digits. I had them double digits winning that game. I just thought that this is a better team. I had watched the Kansas City in the playoffs. I had watched them, at times all year, and I just didn't think they could keep up. And I thought primarily it was going to be because of the defense. Like I knew Jaylen Hurts was going to do his thing. I knew that, and I thought Saquon would have had a bigger game than he did, but I wasn't worried about those guys. I knew they were going to take care of business, but I didn't think the Kansas City Chiefs were ready for the Eagles defense. So I felt good, man. I had him picked by double digits. Of course, you get a little bit nervous and all that kind of stuff. What I was worried about more than anything was a close game, and then the refs come in and screw it up at the end. So I felt like, man, we got to jump on these guys and get up big to kind of prevent anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Going into that game, I had us winning by 10. Double digits for sure, obviously, but I had us winning by 10. I can't remember my exact prediction, but I know I had a dream that we beat them 31-23. But even outside of that dream, I had us beating them by 10.
Wow.
And I even made another proclamation weeks in advance. I mean, well, the moment we solidified, our ticket to the Super Bowl, that is, I made a proclamation the day after we beat Washington. I said, they're not scoring more than 24 points. I promise you that. I said, listen, the Chiefs will not score more than 24 points on the Eagles defense. They will not. They will not. Because I'm thinking about the way the defense played out the playoffs.
Yeah.
What was it? The Commanders scored 23, right? The Rams scored what? 20?
Can't remember.
I think something like that. 20. Not like it matters.
A little more than, yeah.
But they scored somewhere around 20, 21, whatever it may be, right? And you hold the Chiefs to 22 points, and they didn't score their first points until seconds when the final seconds of the third quarter. There was a point in this game where the score was 34-0. So again, I knew we would win by double digits. You knew we would win by double digits. But did you expect that kind of ass whooping though?
No, probably not. Probably not. I thought it would have been. I thought it was going to be closer into the fourth quarter. Okay. Like what I initially said was I thought the Eagles jump out early big, then the Chiefs are going to make it a game, and then Barkley breaks the big one late to give us, cushion. That's kind of how I thought it was going to go. I didn't expect the defense to just utterly come out and run all over them. Although, I could tell you, I did not think that was as good of a Chief team as we played 2 years ago. I thought we were better. I did not worry about their run game at all. Their wide receivers, there was nothing offensively that really scared me except for Mahomes. If Mahomes can break plays and get scramble and make plays, like he always does with his arm and his feet, those were the kind of things that worried me about him. But I didn't expect them to just be so disciplined and just shut them down. I mean, I don't think they got to midfield to like the third quarter.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, the end of the third quarter. You're absolutely right.
That I didn't expect it, and I didn't expect the defensive line to be so dominant. I mean, to me, that was like it was like Jordan Davis get a sack, Jalen Hunt sack, Nolan Smith. I mean, I knew Nolan Smith to me, Nolan Smith became a star in the playoffs. So I wasn't totally surprised that he played well. But, and then Oren Burks. I mean, we need to mention Oren Burks too, because
Absolutely.
His play from the Green Bay game where he causes a fumble throughout that. I mean, he was great. He was great.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, Oren Burks definitely potentially earned himself some money, elsewhere.
He did, yeah.
The way he played in that playoffs, opening kickoff of the playoffs, forced the fumble in the NFC Championship game on Austin Eckler. He steadied the ship when the Kobe went down, man, and the Kobe was playing out of his mind. But you think about defensively with that, you spoke a lot about it already, but God, like the duress Patrick Mahomes was under in that game, he was completely out of character, right? And then he throws a pick six to Cooper DeJean. Zack Baun picks it off in their own territory. Milton Williams and Jalen Carter, I mean, completely obliterate him to force the fumble. Milton recovers it. Dog, this defense came out with bad intentions. Bad intentions. Is this? You've watched a lot of Eagles football in your lifetime. Is this the best Eagles defense that you've? I want to be careful when I word this to you. Is this the greatest? Is this, no. Okay. All right.
91. That Reggie, Jerome, Clyde. That to me, that's still the most dominant defense I've ever seen. Most dominant. However, this defense plays on a much better team. You know what I'm saying? This is the best team, best pure Eagles team I've ever seen. When you count offensive, defense, they're the best. This is the best Eagles team I've ever seen. But that Reggie, Clyde, I mean, they were so dominant. But I always envisioned that defense being in the Super Bowl looking like the way this defense looked. This is what I pictured it would have looked like when I used to imagine what those guys would do.
Yeah, the thing about those 90s teams, they just didn't have the opportunity to showcase on the big stage. They didn't have the opportunity.
They didn't have the offense. I mean, that 91 defense, I've never seen a defense where they come on the field and the offense goes backwards every series. They go backwards. It was like, and they had no offense. So they would be on the field like 45 minutes a game. And they would give up like 8 points, 7 points, 9 points. It was always like under 14 points or something. They were dominant. I mean, but this defense, they're younger, and when you look at what they've already accomplished, they've accomplished more, and they play on a team that's a much better team. This is by far, and it's not even close. This is by far the best Eagles team I've ever seen. Best.
Okay, so how about this? Let's try to draw a line here from the Kelly Green era to the Midnight Green era then, right? Because, two different brands of football, two different ownership groups, right? Let's try to draw a distinct line from past to present. Is this the greatest or the best Midnight Green era defense you've ever seen?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that's
I would put it two. I would put it two. The best defenses I've ever seen. I would put it two. But
overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But they've played in more meaningful games. Like they've already accomplished more. So I have to make sure I give that defense credit. I mean, Reggie by himself is probably a top 10 greatest defensive player to ever have played.
Probably top 5.
Yeah, and you look like Reggie would, I look at it like, Jerome Brown, to me, him and Jalen Carter looks like he's the best looking defensive tackle I've seen since Jerome Brown. So to me, he's got that ability. Clyde Simmons, people forget, like Clyde would have 19 sacks a year, 16 sacks. And he was opposite of Reggie. So, I mean, it was a scary defense at a different time, but they never had an offense like this.
Yeah.
So, this defense is what I always thought that defense would do in a Super Bowl.
Wow, man. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, right? We've waxed poetic about this defense and the coaching job, and Jalen Hurts deserves all the flowers in the world. And I wanted to save him, for this part of the conversation, because Jalen Hurts has really experienced a lot in his young NFL
Mhm.
career. He's never really had continuity from a coaching perspective as far as OCs
Right.
go. He's constantly been disparaged and belittled because of the way he decides to play the game. He's
Mhm.
somebody that they thought would have to change his position, or as a matter of fact, they asked him if he would change his position going into the NFL so he can get on the football field. They tried to say that he would be a career backup if he's lucky. They
Mhm.
said he couldn't read defenses. You can never build a team around this guy. This guy can never lead your franchise.
Yeah.
And all he did was keep his head down, work on his craft, steady the ship, be a leader on and off the football field, go to 2 Pro Bowls, be a second-team All-Pro, be a Burt Bell Award winner, go to win 2 NFC championship games, be the winningest quarterback from his draft class, go to 2 Super Bowls, get a Super Bowl ring, and now is a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
Please, I need you to break down your feelings, your thoughts on Jalen Hurts' performance in that game, and your thoughts and feelings on Jalen Hurts overall.
Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, overall, is, I think, the most underrated player in the National Football League, because even when he goes and he wins, they act like, he doesn't do it himself, or he can't pass, or he can't do this, he can't do that, or if they have any success, it's because of everybody else. I think he's the most underrated player in the league. I think he's a stone cold killer. I think he's got that Kobe Bryant, gene in him. I do. I think he's a stone cold killer. I think he's the kind of guy that is always going to play better the more pressure in a game. I always felt like that. I've been saying for the last 3 years that he'll win at least 2 Super Bowls when it's all said and done, and I really believe that. Now, hell, it may end up being more than that, but I think Hurts. Here's the thing: the way the league is, right? Everybody wants to talk about passing numbers, pass this, pass right. They focus so much on passing. Okay, look at a guy like Herbert, right? He throws 3 interceptions all season long. Gets to the playoffs in 1 game, throws 4 interceptions. Okay, and the way I see it is regular season football is not playoff football. They're 2 different type of games. Jalen Hurts plays playoff football all year.
All year long. Oh, I like that. I like that. No one's defined it like that. I like that. Keep going.
Yeah, he plays it all year long. And when you get to the playoffs, you can see how things change. Teams try to run the ball more. Look at all the quarterback and look at their passing numbers in the playoffs. They all come down. They have less attempts. Right? They try to play more of the style the Eagles play. Jalen Hurts plays winning football, playoff football all year long. These guys, they get to the playoffs and then they try to play playoff football. Jalen Hurts is already doing it. So to me, because he doesn't look a certain way that these, media guys want him to look, they criticize. But the truth of the matter is the adjustments from the quarterbacks on other teams they have to become more like Jalen Hurts in the playoffs, while Jalen Hurts is consistently like that all year long.
Wow. So break down what you saw in that game from him. I mean, the dude played out of his mind. Remember, Saquon Barkley got bottled up relatively early in that game, and he really didn't affect the game in the way we thought he would. But I would argue Saquon Barkley affected that game significantly in pass pro, picking up the blitz. I think he had 90 yards in total offense. He had 31 total touches. Again, he didn't have too many explosive runs. I think his longest run of the day was about maybe 10 or 11 yards, if I'm not mistaken. But Jaylen Hurts goes 17 for 22, completes over 70% of his passes, 221 passing yards, averages 10 yards an attempt, pushing the ball down the field regularly, 2 passing touchdowns. The one interception that came off of when it was a blown block.
Right.
But you can kind of look at it like a glorified punt. But again, 17 for 22, completes over 70% of his passes, 221 passing yards, averages 10 yards an attempt, 2 passing touchdowns. Only takes 2 sacks, a 119.7 passer rating. On top of that, he gave you 11 carries for 72 rushing yards, average over 6 yards an attempt, and a rushing touchdown. Longest rush of the day, 17 yards. I mean, the dude was electric. Just break down your observations from that game, your favorite moments from the game in terms of his performance. Just let me in on. Let me in your mind here, man.
I mean, my favorite pass is that Devontae Smith bomb, right? To kind of seal it. I love that play. Although I think that play was all like I think he could have put up way bigger numbers because I think that play action was there all game, and it took him a while to use it. But I think the pass to Jahan Dotson early in that game. Well, actually, let me go back. The pass to A.J. Brown that they called pass interference. My words in that stream were, okay, that's a bad call. I hate that they called that, but you guys got a problem because Jalen Hurts is making throws like that. You've got a problem.
4th and 5, 500. 4th and 5.
Yeah, that's when you knew he was going to be sharp. But it just doesn't surprise me that he played at played good at a high level. I mean, people don't understand. Even after the Super Bowl, people are still like, well, if Dak Prescott was there, he would have won the Super Bowl. If this quarterback was on that team, they would have won. It's just not true. He has played 2 Super Bowl games where he's played Kansas City Chiefs, where nobody else can beat him. And he's had his best games. So to me, in the biggest moments, he's clutch. To me, he looked very composed, very calm, very ready to go, very Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan-esque. That's what he looked like to me.
Man,
it's not just one play. It's just the way he carries himself, man. It's the whole thing,
No, you're right. You're right. The way he carries himself, his personality really shows in how he plays the game. But again, that game, you beat him 40-22. A lot of people made a lot of money in that game. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Zack Baun.
Yeah.
Those are Mekhi Becton, right? Made money throughout the season. Those are your 4 key free agents that the Philadelphia Eagles have to think about whether they're going to bring him back or lose him, right? To a higher, lose him to the highest bidder. So let's tap into the free agency conversation, right? Howie Roseman has a ton of decisions to make. He has a ton of things to knock off the checklist here. He has to figure out if he's going to be able to bring back any of those guys. Let me walk you down my checklist or my priority list. Okay. Right? I believe priority number 1, you got to re-sign Zack Baun. Priority number 2, re-sign Mekhi Becton. And anything after that is a plus. So, do you agree with that? Do you feel differently about how Howie Roseman should approach his offseason? Just give me your thoughts on their free agent situation and where you think they should go with it.
I agree with you. I agree Zack Baun's number 1 priority. Over anything else, he's number 1 priority. Because if you sign Zack Baun, as soon as you sign him, your championship starting defense is back. It's back. It's intact. If you don't sign him, then you got a hole. The defense is good pretty much everywhere else, but you got a hole at linebacker. Nakobe Dean's coming back when? Oren Burke's probably not going to be back. So what are we going to look at? Brand new linebackers? You got to sign Zack Baun. When a guy's a defensive player of the year like that, you've got to sign him. So to me, that's my priority number one. My priority number two, I go back and forth. I would love to see Becton back. I would. But I think that Stoutland, I trust whatever he decides to do. I know it's going to be okay. And I really wonder, because they got that Trevor Keegan kid that I think they like a lot. And I think they like Steen. Hopefully Becton will come back. So I would like that, And then as far as after, Baun and Becton, I actually think I'm all for going after Myles Garrett. I am, because here's why. And I guess it depends on a few things. I'm all for it as long as I don't have to give up a player for him. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not giving up Nolan Smith. I'm not giving up Cooper DeJean. I'm not giving up the young guys, because I already have guys I know can win without them. I don't need Myles Garrett to win. I don't. However, if I want to take my level of my defense to another level, you want to talk about that 91 defense and maybe getting close to it, you add a Myles Garrett to what you already have. Now you've got something maybe on another level, but you can't do it at the expense of what you already have. You've already won. So I don't mind going after him. I would give up picks to go out and get him. I also think that when you win, you have to watch out for guys that become complacent. I think it's natural. I think when you win, it's natural to become complacent, ride the offseason. Bill Belichick used to talk about trying to have up to 30% turnover because he wanted guys that were hungry. What I like about Myles Garrett is he's desperate to win. So he's coming in with the mentality of like Saquon Barkley had last year on the defensive side of the ball. So I think having guys that are hungry like that is contagious. And if you can do it, do it. But I'm not trading players for them. Like, I've seen some ridiculous things out there.
Yeah, I've seen people try to throw Nolan Smith into the conversation. I'm like, are you high?
Yeah.
Like no. But that begs the question, right? Because I do agree with you. There's a certain element to being hungry, right? And Saquon Barkley brought a level of hunger that maybe the Eagles probably thought they had, but he was starving.
Yeah.
So are we talking like what? 3 first-round picks, 2 first. I mean, how old is Myles Garrett? Because that's going to influence as well.
He's almost 30. That's the other reason. He's almost 30.
Yeah, he's 29. So what is that? 2 first rounders?
If he was 26, 27, then maybe I could see giving up 3 first rounders.
But here's
I don't think it's going to cost that much.
How valuable are the Eagles' first-round picks if they're going to regularly be picking 30, 31, 32?
They're going to be their second-round picks, their early second-round picks. Yeah, that's why I would do it. See, my thing is this, because did you hear the stuff that they want, that one of the guys the Browns want is Devontae Smith? Like, Devontae Smith is one of the guys. Are you crazy?
They're smoking the hardest crack from the 80s.
Yeah, I don't even want to give up. I don't even want to give up Jordan Davis. I think that we've got to negotiate from the standpoint of being champions, not from the standpoint of, okay, we're almost there. It's not like we lost a championship game and need to get there, right? We didn't just lose and we need Myles to get us over the hump.
He's a luxury. We've
already won. Yeah, I get Myles Garrett because, one, if you add him to a championship defense already, you're going to be that much better. It's the same philosophy as what would this offense look like if you put Saquon Barkley or a talent like that behind his offensive line. So what does Myles Garrett look like if added to a championship defense? Now I think you're getting into historical defenses. Now there's a conversation to be made about the 91 defense. And this one, you see what I'm saying? I think he takes you to that level. But you can't give yourself a glaring hole somewhere else. I mean, I've even heard Cooper DeJean's name mentioned. There is no way. No.
Yo,
Nolan Smith,
we were just
Cooper, like,
talking,
no, I
man.
ain't doing it, man. So I think, if you want to go up and say, listen, I'll tell Cleveland this, listen, I'll give you a first round pick this year, first round pick next year, you know, and I'll even throw in another early pick so you could take one of those picks and go get a player somewhere else on another roster. But you ain't taking my guys. I don't need you. I don't need them to win. I could go get somebody else. I don't need them to win. That's how I feel.
Right, that's right, and that's the angle, right? You don't want to approach this like you're a team that's just one player away. You won it already. You proved that you can do this. It's a luxury, so therefore, it's not like Cleveland can really strong arm you, or you can be backed into a corner. And honestly, Cleveland doesn't have as much leverage as they think they have, because Miles has made it very clear he wants out. So now the world knows he's gone, or he wants out. Right, the world knows that you got to move him, because he's not going to lace up for you. He's not going to lace it up for you. He's not going to play for you. So you got to trade him, and you got to trade him fast before the draft. So now the timeline shrinks, and you want to get as much as you can that can help rebuild your team, at least in this draft class as well, because Deshaun Watson's not going to get it done for you, right? So now the clock kind of speeds up for Cleveland. I like the way you're thinking with that. Speaking of the draft, and the combine is pretty much underway. The combine I think just ended, right? So, give me. Are there any prospects? How about this? Let's approach it from this angle. Give me what you believe are the top needs for the Philadelphia Eagles going into this draft class, and what are or who are the players that you would love for Philadelphia Eagles to go target, or who are you fascinated by? Who piques your interest right now?
Right now, to me, I'm still more in not so much which guy as in what position.
Okay.
I'm still thinking in terms of, all right, what position do I need? And some things like that. Now there are a couple guys. That kid Pearson Jr. from where is he from? Yeah, I forget. But Tennessee. That kid looks good. The Eagles talked a couple safeties. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I think a pass rusher.
James Pierce Jr.
Pierce Jr. I liked him. I thought he stood out. I think an edge rusher like that is what you need, which is why I wouldn't mind going out and getting Myles Garrett. But if I don't get him, I wouldn't mind a guy like that. I also think we got to think about, obviously tight end. And you got to think about the cornerback position, because if Slay goes, do they kick Cooper DeJean outside? That's the question. Are they going to kick him outside? If you kick him outside, now you need a slot corner. They talked to that kid Malachi Starks. Some guys, some safeties from Alabama, kid from Georgia. You got the kid from South Carolina. So would they get a safety, a guy who could be a safety / slot corner kind of guy, and use him to put in the slot and then kick DeJean on the outside? I don't know what their plan is, but if Slay goes, what are you going to do at cornerback? Are you going to go at Ringo? Isaiah Rodgers a free agent, So right. To me, when you're picking 32, it's so hard, because we're talking about guys that could very well go 20, 15, 16, 17. I don't know where they're going to fall, so it's really hard to know. But I think in terms of if I'm the Eagles, the way I kind of see it is, I won't mind trading these picks. And the reason I say is, you've done so well the last 3-4 years with your draft picks that we've got all these contracts coming up, right? You got to get a lot of guys under contract extension wise, all at the same time. Nakobe Dean, you're still going to have to get Cam Jurgens done. What are you going to do when Jordan Davis? What are you going to do with Nolan Smith? Like Jalen Carter, like all these guys' contracts, because they've picked so well, are all coming in this, in groups, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they got to get those guys. So if you want to take a chance and take a couple extra draft picks and go for Myles Garrett, I have no problem with it. I think you've drafted well enough where you can do that. If you want to draft, to me, it's more about position. I think I would say edge rusher. I think you need another edge rusher. But you got to take the best player available, wherever that is. A tight end, I'll be honest. I watched the tight ends. There's a couple guys, but there was nobody that stood out to me that go, oh yeah, we need that guy. So I just think it depends on who's there and what your need is. It would not surprise me that the Eagles take a safety in the first round, even though they usually never do, because it's the best player on the board.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think the Eagles will stay at 32. I'll tell you that. They're either trade up or they'll trade down. I'll be shocked if they're at 32 when we pick.
Okay. I just got two last topics I want to broach with you, and then we want to get to these super chats, and then we're going to close out the show. How does that sound, my friend?
Running back also,
okay.
is another position I think we need to add. You can't keep Barkley getting 30 carries a game. We're going to have to back off that, I think, a little bit. I think, why not get another running back, have a little three-headed monster thing going there. I think that would be fine. I mean, there's so many ways they can go, but to me, if we go by needs, I think you need another edge rusher. You're going to need another edge rusher.
Yeah, to your point about the running back angle, I think this is a big opportunity for Will Shipley.
Right.
He's really good, and he's not only good as a runner in between the tackles, but he's patient, and he can also catch the ball from the backfield, right? So we'll see what they do with that. But yeah, I got two more questions for you. Get to the super chats, and I'm gonna get you out of here, my friend. Thanks again for providing so much time.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, man, even more. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We have Philly.500, man, the Don Dada, one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it. Let's continue to keep this ball rolling. Then we're going to close this show out. So, again, we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, trying to maintain their dominance in the NFL through the free agents, through trying to bring back key free agents and the draft, and also making sure the right guys are signed. There were a couple teams who made some moves to try to keep themselves in the conversation. There's a rumor that the Packers are trying to make a play for DK Metcalf. The rumor is that they have a contract, or they have a kind of a situation kind of laid out. They just need Seattle to pull the trigger. The Rams and Matthew Stafford agreed to a restructure, so he's not going to go to the Raiders or anywhere else. He's going to stay there. That's a team that challenged us. And the Commanders, they traded for Deebo Samuel. It's fascinating that the three key moves that we've seen so far throughout the offseason have come from teams that we've faced in this playoff run. They see what we've done. They see what the Eagles have accomplished, and they understand that they are on the clock, and they know that we're going to continue to move the ball forward. But the Deebo Samuel angle of this thing.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on Deebo being traded to the Commanders? How much of a needle mover is that in your opinion? And what's your take on the value that the 49ers got back for him?
Well, I think it was a 5th round pick, right? So right. I thought that was cheap. I mean, I don't think the 49ers got much value other than they got rid of his contract. I think Washington's taking on his full contract. I think it moves the needle a little bit. But clearly what we're seeing is the start of an arms race, I believe. Because I believe Washington, and I believe there's going to be other teams they're all gunning for the Eagles, right? The Eagles are the champs. When you listen to these other teams speak, dude, I think they're all scared to death of Howie Roseman. I think they're all scared. And I think Washington is going to be very, very aggressive. I think, to me, more than anything, that move says, yo, Philly, we're coming. This is the start of it. They're just getting ready. They're going to load up. I think they're going to try to get Myles Garrett, which is another reason why, if you could get Myles Garrett and block him from going to Washington, it's kind of a double whammy. But I think that Deebo Samuel, in terms of how good it makes Washington, I think it helps a little bit. I don't look at Deebo Samuel and say, well, there's a good, great outside wide receiver. Like, I think the only way you really utilize him to his fullest is you got to move him all around. He's got to play outside, got to be in the slot, got to play running back. And if you're not using him like that, he doesn't worry me all that much. to be honest with you. So I think the Eagles can handle that. I think more than anything, with the Packers going out and getting DK Metcalf, well, it looks like they're going to end up getting him. But to me, it just signals more than anything that Washington is gunning for us, and they're going to be loading up on players. So the question is does Howie match that intensity? I will say this. If you look at Howie's track record, the years that he's aggressive in free agency are the years that we go to the Super Bowl. Well, every time we've gone to Super Bowl, Howie's had an aggressive all season. I don't think it needs to be as aggressive or in the same way this year,
Right.
but he's still got to be aggressive. I think, if you can find a way to add Myles Garrett to this team, do it. I think you should do it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. All right, final question before we get to these super chats. Kevin Patullo, former pass game coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, gets promoted to offensive coordinator after Kellen Moore departs for the New Orleans Saints head coaching job. What was your perspective? What was your thoughts on Kevin Patullo getting a job? Were you pleased? Were you indifferent? Are you more in the wait and see mode? Did you not like the move? Just give me your overall response to when the Kevin Patullo news came across the wire for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I worry. There's a slight hint of worry because, when it has been in situations where the passing game has struggled, I don't believe it's because of Jaylen Hurts. I believe because what they've tried to do was just not that good. But at the same time, the guy's been there for a while, and I can't argue after winning a Super Bowl with them giving him the job. So I'm going to give him a chance. Wait and see, give him a chance, and we'll see what happens. I honestly, here's a weird thing, I think, but I've been thinking about this. I think Jalen Hurts is the offensive coordinator now. I mean, the guy has seen how many
he checks a lot of plays, man.
How many different coaches and styles and different things has he had to deal with in his career? He's pretty much seen it all. At what point is he just needs somebody to help him with certain things, and he's good to just take over anyways. So if Jalen's good with it, I'm good with it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, AJ gave it the seal of approval. Lane Johnson gave it the seal of approval. Those are some pretty key cogs on the offensive side of the ball that pretty much gave their green light to that move. And I'm sure, a move like that doesn't happen without Jalen Hurts being privy to it, at least before we are.
I would think so. Yeah.
You got to make sure you do right by your Super Bowl MVP. I repeat, you got to do right.
I don't mean to cut you off. I just like that the defensive coaches are back.
Yes.
None of them got taken. To me, that's the bigger thing. Like,
because the offense is so talented, right? The offense is so talented. You can kind of overcome, even if you are going through growing pains with the new OC, right? You're so talented, you're so dominant in the trenches. You can overcome that, right? But having Vic Fangio being back, Christian Parker, Bobby King, Clint Hurt, the other ancillary guys, Jeremiah Washburn. Right, our corners coach specifically. I forget my man's name.
I forget his name too. Yeah,
I don't want to butcher it, but he works closely with Christian Parker. But yeah, you're right. The fact that you have a young defense that's going to have another year in this system with these guys, man, it's going to be really, really inspiring to see where they take their game to next. So, yeah, man. When it comes to the Kevin Patullo thing, I'm pretty much in the same breath as you for the most part. Wait and see. I'm not going to act like I know everything about this guy. There's a lot of people out here who are jumping out the window pretending like they know the full science on this guy. They got the full Carfax on this guy. My thing is, you don't. You really don't. All you know is that he was here when Nick got hired, and he's been here ever since. He's been a pass game coordinator ever since. That's all you know. Other than that, let's not sit here and pretend like we could just dismantle this guy and say, "Oh no, that was a bad hire." You don't know if it was either or. So let's just wait and see. The Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl champions. He's a Super Bowl MVP. Nick Sirianni is a Super Bowl winning head coach. Hey, listen, I think he's earned some latitude a little bit.
I do too. I told you, man. I'll be the first to admit this. I lost confidence in Nick Sirianni last year When that collapse happened
That's
and the
natural.
way it went down, I lost confidence in him. But that whole stretch, what we were talking earlier about how's he going to handle the stuff that was going on with AJ and Brandon Graham and their relationship and all that, how is he going to handle that? And he proved that and then some. So I think Nick deserves a lot of credit for that too, and I think he does deserve I think he does deserve enough leash to see what these coaches are and what they do.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's get to these super chats, and I'll let you go, my friend. Once again, thank you so much for providing so much time to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Whenever you come on, bro, it's like flies to honey. People gravitate to you, bro. People
I
gravitate to you,
that, man.
For sure.
Anytime you want me on, I'll be on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And likewise, my friend, if you ever need me for anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always available to you. Shout out to Dana Scott becoming a new member. Thank you, Dana. I really do appreciate you. Dark Matters, thank you for becoming a new member. Thank you so much. Fanny, the Eagles fan, one of our members, she's been a member for 1 month. She says, "Hey, Tone and Philly.500, keep Isaiah Rodgers, please." And she also followed it up by saying, "Hey, Tone, hey, Philly, with all the attention on resigning D linemen, are there any provisions being given to keep Rodgers in case Slade makes a move elsewhere or in the alternative as our punt returner?" What's your thoughts on that, Philly.500? What's your thoughts on just the whole dynamic between Darius, Slade, Isaiah Rodgers? You briefly spoke about how what that outside corner spot may look like. Me personally, I want to keep Cooper. I want to keep Cooper in the slot. I like what he's able to do there.
I do.
But what's your thoughts? Could it be Ringo? Could it be Isaiah Rodgers if Slade moves on?
I don't know. I wonder what they're going to do too. That's why when they started talking to so many safeties at the combine, I'm a little interested in what they're thinking there. But I would bring. I agree with her. I would bring Isaiah Rodgers back.
He earned some money though. He put up some good tape this season, so he probably earned some money.
He did, and people, with him and Ringo, it's so hard to judge them, in my opinion, because you have Slade goes out, comes back in, goes out, and we're asking these guys to go in and out of the game, and I think that it's hard to judge them. It's hard for them to get into any rhythm or get settled in. So I think Isaiah Rodgers seems like he would be a decent. Maybe for a decent price, you could bring him in and then let him and Ringo battle it out. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. And if you decide, hey, we want to go elsewhere, keep an eye out on Sante Samuel Jr. Free agent.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
He plays well in the zone, so he may be a good fit. I'm just saying if they want to do that, But I would like to see Isaiah Rodgers come back. And as far as returns goes, punt returns, please get Cooper DeJean off.
Please get him out of there. Get him out of there. And it's not because he can't do it. I don't want to see him get hurt in a crucial. I don't want it. I don't want it for him.
Yeah, he can do it. But I don't want to. But yeah, I think Isaiah Rodgers could do it. I mean, I never understood why he wasn't used more in that role when he was successful in Indy doing that. So yeah, I'm all for Isaiah Rodgers coming back. If we could find a way to bring him back.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Fanny, for the super chat. We really appreciate that. Sam followed up with another $10 super chat. He says, Philly.500, you weren't excited about the Eagles selection of Jaylen Hurts in 2020. What is your thoughts on Jalen and his impact on his team? Before you go 500, because I see people with all these edits with you and RB, and a lot of people reacted to the Jaylen Hurts drafting. And listen, Sam, again, I appreciate your super chat, and trust me, this is not really towards you. It's just more so you reignited something that bothers me. We have to keep things in context. When Jalen Hurts was drafted, Carson Wentz was paid a gargantuan amount of money for that time. And initially, when you think about the team's overall needs at that time, you say to yourself, why are you drafting a quarterback in the second round? If you felt like you wanted to draft a cheap backup, then draft one in the fourth or the fifth, whatever it may be, right? So again, I don't like when people try to pretend like you were just against Jalen Hurts. It had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. Right. It was about the context of the situation that the Eagles were specifically in.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the reactions are a reaction, and I keep it up there. I could have taken that thing down long ago, but I leave it up because it is what it is. But if you listen to those clips are always taken out of context because it just makes it look like you're saying, oh, why would you draft this guy? He stinks. It's horrible. And if you listen to the actual live stream when I was streaming, I said like 2 or 3 times, I said, this has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. I think he could be a good player. This has to do with strategy. Why are you not getting a guy that could come in and help you right away? That was my disappointment. It
You
wasn't
needed receivers, you needed
player.
corners, you needed a lot. You
Right.
needed a lot right there.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't Jalen Hurts. I had no idea whether I knew Jalen Hurts, I knew who he was. I thought he was a great kid from everything I heard. I had no idea or real no opinion on whether he was going to be good or not. I didn't. What I didn't understand was the strategy of the pick. That's what I had a problem with because why would you pick a backup quarterback when you need a starter? You just paid this guy, like you said, a ton of money. That's what I didn't understand. That was what was the anger. That's why I was angry. And I had been angered and pissed off earlier, so it was compounded because the
Jalen
Eagles
Reagor.
because the Eagles let CeeDee Lamb go to Dallas, and I thought that they should have traded up. So my thought was, why didn't Atlanta wanted a second round pick to get up and get that pick? That was what the rumor was out there. Why didn't you why spend it on a quarterback you're not going to use? That was my thinking. So it wasn't anything personal against Jalen Hurts. It was the strategy at the time. However, two things I'll say about that. One, they must have knew something about Carson that we didn't. Right. So it turned out to be right, and I'm glad it worked out. And then the second thing about that pick, Jalen Hurts. Crap, I forgot what I was going to say.
I mean, look, Jalen Hurts. No, you're good. Jalen Hurts. I mean, it was a strange pick at the time. And full transparency, I wasn't like jumping to the moon when we drafted Jalen Hurts at the time. I was like, I don't get it. Now in the process of me saying I don't get the decision at the time, now you start once the pick is done, it's done. So now you got to do the science and say, okay, maybe they look at it from the perspective of the backup quarterback market exploded at that time. Taysom Hill kind of ruined it when he got that big contract from the Saints. Right. So the backup quarterback market was insane. Andy Dalton, I think Andy Dalton got a big contract from whatever team it was. So the Eagles were looking at it from the perspective of we really don't have the resources to really invest in the backup quarterback. Let's draft one that's dynamic, athletic. Maybe he can make plays outside of the pocket, whatever it may be. Let's bring in a guy that can maybe relieve Carson in the event he gets hurt, because it's happened plenty of times before that.
That's what I think. That's what I think it was.
Right.
I think the play where Hurts, where Carson gets hit in the playoffs, gets knocked out of that playoff game. I think Howie knew something. I think he knew that was Carson.
I think it scared him. The moment he got hurt in that playoff game against Seattle, I think Howie got.
I think he knew. You know. But we didn't understand it. Think of it this year. Let's say the Eagles in this draft in the second round a quarterback. How are you going to feel if they draft a quarterback in the second round this year? People are going to be like, "What are you doing?" Right?
You're right.
That's how it felt then. Because remember, you had just won a Super Bowl not too long ago. Carson had put up MVP. You're thinking this guy's not going anywhere for whatever. So that was the whole thing behind it, But I leave it up there because I'm not running from how I act, my reactions.
Listen, our job is to chronicle, this team, the things we see, our perspectives, and it's all a part of the journey. It's all that's like the Philadelphia Eagles. That's like the Philadelphia Eagles wishing they didn't lose to Washington. It's all a part of the story. It happens. You know what I mean? But yeah, man,
Listen,
Sam, thank you.
that
Yeah,
reaction is going to be in 20 years, 30 years. That reaction is going to be more accurate of Eagle fans than anything else, because nowadays I can't you can't imagine the people that will comment on it still. Like, I knew that was a great pick. I knew it. And I'm like, I know you didn't know it was a great pick because
you
you
did
were
it.
in my chat. Okay, you were with me talking about it. So, everybody, are revisionist historians, but at the time, that was the feeling of most Eagle fans, like it or not.
Yeah, and if you did feel differently, it's because you probably just were completely fed up with Carson Wentz. You hated him from the beginning. But
Right.
anyway, Sam, thank you so much for
Thank you,
sparking such a
Sam.
great conversation, man. We appreciate you, man. Thank you. Lucius became a new member. Thank you, Lucius. I appreciate you, my friend. Lucius the show. Shout out to you, my friend. All right, Philly for life with the super chat, $2 super chat. Thank you, Philly for life. Says Bryce Huff, first round and second. Bryce Huff, a first round pick and a second round pick gets it done for 500 for Myles Garrett. I don't know. I don't know because
Well, I don't know. I don't know how hard it is going to trade to move off Huff. That's the one thing I don't know. Like, with his contract, listen. People are talking like 2 and 3 first round picks. I don't think it's going to cost that much. The guy's almost 30.
and
I
he
asked
wants
this in
out, and he wants out. So that's
and he
everything.
wants out. I asked this in my chat yesterday. Nobody knew, but how many guys 30 years and older, non-quarterbacks, have ever netted 2 first-round picks at minimum in a trade?
Man,
I would love to know. I don't know, but I bet you it's not many, if at all.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Philly for life. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Really do appreciate you. All right, Anthony Perry. He has 2 back-to-back super chats. We're gonna knock these out. Aunt Perry. He says we need to keep Myles Garrett away from Washington. Go get him. And he follows it up by saying Howie's the boogeyman of the NFL. He is like Samara from The Ring. During the offseason. It's been 7 days. The phone rings. Yo, Anthony, the way your brain works, is crazy. The way your brain works is off the charts.
100%.
For sure, man. Howie is the boogeyman of the NFL. Like, and it's so funny because he's a short guy, got that voice. Hey, how you doing? Like, he's a very
I think he's the most. I think teams fear him more than any player.
People that have worked
there. I
there,
think he's the most feared person in the NFL.
People who have worked under him, they say he's ruthless. People who worked under him, who worked with him, they say he's not an easy person to work for. He's ruthless. He's very demanding. And it just speaks to. I mean, you don't get to where he's already delivered a Hall of Fame resume. I mean, two Super Bowl rings, 2 different head coaches, 2 different starting quarterbacks. I mean,
but you know what he is, though, that nobody talks about, that I really like about him, is he's humble. And what I mean by that is, you look at him early on, right? His first stint before the Chip Dip Kelly took over and he was sent to the boiler room.
That's funny,
right? He went out there and he was a certain way. He came back the second time as a GM and he changed his ways. He fixed his mistakes, right? Not a lot of guys are willing to do that. The other thing is how many GMs are willing to know that they made a mistake with the player and then let him go only to bring him back the next year. Look at this situation in a relationship with CJ Gardner Johnson.
No ego. You're right. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
He was willing to let all that go and bring him back, despite that they didn't keep CJ Gardner Johnson. Johnson was kind of beefing with the fans and said some stuff. All that, he was able to say, I made a mistake. I'm gonna bring him back.
That means he saw what we saw. That. He saw what you saw. As far as he is the heart of his defense. He saw what you saw.
Yeah. Exactly. I respect him for that.
For sure. Shout out to Anthony Perry for the back-to-back super chats, my friend. Thank you so much for donating to the channel. And our final super chat comes from Trenton Wright. Thank you, Trent. We appreciate you. He says a first round pick, a third round pick, and Dallas Goedert for Myles Garrett. Nah, I don't see that because they have David Njoku at tight end. I don't really see that.
Yeah, they got Njoku. Yeah. Yeah. That I could at least think Goddard because he's a little bit older.
He's 30.
You know?
He's 30 now. He just turned 30 about 50,
Yeah,
about 2 months ago.
Yeah, and he's got one more year, and everybody's expecting him to get a tight end. And I think they'll look into a backup tight end. But yeah, I think. Listen, I'm going to say this. I don't believe Myles Garrett will go for as much as people think they're going to go. I think now the Eagles may have to give up like the extra first because their first is essentially a second rounder.
Yeah.
But I think, let's say they played where they were picking 15. I think a first and a fourth, third would get it done. So, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I don't think it's going to be like, when Khalil Mack went for all those draft picks, he was 27 years old. And there's a big difference between 27 and 30.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Khalil Mack is a free agent right now. Let me see how old he is. He's 30.
I like Khalil Mack.
He's 34.
The only way I would bring Khalil Mack in is he'd have to be willing to take 10 snaps a game. I can't bring a guy like that he can't take snaps away from Jalen Hunt. We've got
or Nolan,
yeah, or Nolan. Myles Garrett, it's a different scenario. You're talking about a Hall of Fame guy, so who has a couple years left. But probably pass on Khalil Mack.
Yeah, I mean, just for context, Khalil Mack's coming up. He's coming off of a 6-sack season, so I mean. He has 17
backup rotational guy.
I think he's definitely. I think his double-digit sack seasons are definitely behind him.
Listen, he played with Vic Fangio though, so he knows Fangio. I will say this, if you brought him in like the Chris Long role from a few years ago, like in that like third down specifically in certain situations, then I would do it. But he can't start. He's got to be like, your fourth or fifth guy.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Trenton Wright, thank you again for the super chat, and thank you to everyone else for the super chats as well. Trenton Wright, Anthony Perry, Philly for life, Sam, fan of the Eagles fan. Also, shout out to our new members once again: Dana Scott, Dark Matters, and Lucius the show. Thank you so much again for becoming new members of the Chalk It Up.
Oh, they're all great, man. They're all great. All great members. They're right there, man. You're lucky to have them. Sure. They're good.
Definitely. So, Philly, man, thank you so much for providing so much insight, so much just bringing your energy, your aura, to the platform, my friend. Means a lot to me.
I appreciate that, man.
Definitely, my friend. Definitely. Man. Any final words before I let you go?
Just thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's always good to work with you, and anytime you need anything from me, just let me know.
8500 is always love, my friend. Anytime you need me, my guy, I'll come a calling, my man, or I'll come a running straight like that. So you take care. Blessings to you, blessings to the family, my man. You guys know what to do. Like you're so big, man. I don't even know if I should promote your channel because like people already subscribe to you. If they're subscribed to me, they're subscribed to you. But regardless, though, make sure you guys go subscribe and go lock in with Philly.500. He is the best, if not one of the best, doing it in this YouTube space, covering the Philadelphia Eagles. Also giving you guys play-by-play, giving you guys off-season breakdowns of the Philadelphia Eagles, giving you guys so many live streams. The Philly Shakedown with him and Joey Shakes. Go lock in with those guys. They're amazing at what they do. Philly.500 is always love, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, my man. Take care.
All right. Shout out to my man, Philly.500, man. That was dope. Shout out to him. I really appreciate him. I appreciate you guys also for making the live stream worthwhile and for just being awesome spectators and awesome supporters to the channel. So we're going to close this thing out. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. I really do appreciate you guys. It means a lot with me. And I can't wait to continue to break down what the Philadelphia Eagles are going to do over the course of this off season. But there you have it, you guys. That was Philly.500. I've been your humble host, Tone DeShields II. And you guys have been tuned into an illustrious edition of Chalk It Up Sports via the Chalk It Up Network, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. See you guys next time.